I'm Anne. It's been a while since the whole ordeal with Uncle Carl, but the memory still stings. Sitting here, I'm reminded of that fateful Thanksgiving dinner when everything came to a head. The atmosphere at my parents' house was already tense when I walked in. The whole family was there: Mom, Dad, Uncle Carl, Aunt Grace, my cousins, and my sister Lily. The dining room table was set with Mom's finest china, but the mood was far from festive. Uncle Carl spotted me and grinned. There she is. Hey, thanks for those coins. That boat is a beauty. 28 FTC Ray. You should come take a look. Everyone turned to me expectantly. I set my bag down carefully. I'm glad you're enjoying it. The collector gave you a fair price, $15,000 cash. Not bad for stuff that's been sitting in a basement for years. Dad raised his wine glass. Nice work, Carl. Always knew you could negotiate. But I couldn't let it slide. Those coins weren't meant to be sold, I said quietly. The room fell silent, and Uncle Carl's smile faded. We've been over this. They were in Mom's house, he retorted. I'm the executor. Everything in that house is part of the estate. Except items that don't belong to the estate. Those coins were federal evidence in my custody. I told you repeatedly that I needed to retrieve them, I replied. Lily laughed. Federal evidence of what? Rare penny crimes? Counterfeiting and money laundering. I'm a Treasury forensic investigator. Those coins were evidence in a case going to trial in 6 weeks, I explained. Uncle Carl waved dismissively. You work for the government doing some desk job. Stop exaggerating about old coins to make yourself sound important. I took a deep breath. I work for Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. I investigate currency counterfeiting, numismatic fraud, and money laundering through rare coin markets. The coins you sold were master forgeries seized in a $40 million fraud case. Mom frowned. Master forgeries? What does that mean? The highest quality counterfeit coins in a manufacturing operation. They're used to create molds for making additional forgeries. Without them, we can't prove how the network produced their counterfeits or link all the defendants, I said. If they're counterfeits, why are they worth anything? Cousin Tom asked. Because they're evidence. They prove manufacturing capability, authenticate other seized coins, and establish the scope of the fraud. Their evidentiary value is $900,000, I explained. Uncle Carl laughed. $900,000? For fake coins? That's ridiculous. That's their documented value in the case. You sold $900,000 in federal evidence for $15,000 to a dealer who's now disappeared, I said. Dad set down his glass. Disappeared? Martin Black closed his shop and vanished 3 days after buying the coins from Carl. He's been on Treasury's watch list for years as a suspected money launderer. The color drained from Uncle Carl's face. I didn't know. You didn't ask. You just saw an opportunity to make quick cash and took it, I said. Lily leaned forward. Even if that's all true, how was Carl supposed to know? You left coins at Grandma's house. You never explained what they were. I told him they were work-related property that needed to be retrieved. I called him twice to arrange pickup. He blocked me both times because he was too busy with estate stuff. Apparently, he was busy selling my property instead, I said. Uncle Carl's voice rose. It was in my mother's house. Under estate law, everything in that house became part of her estate when she died. Except property that doesn't belong to the estate. Property that was explicitly stored there temporarily for work purposes. Property I told you needed to be retrieved, I countered. You never said it was evidence, he said. I couldn't disclose case details. But I told you it was work property that couldn't be sold or moved. You did it anyway, I replied. Mom touched Uncle Carl's arm. Did you really sell her coins without permission? They'd been there for 3 years. She never came to get them, he said. Because you wouldn't let me in the house. You kept saying you were too busy, I said. Aunt Grace looked worried. Carl, if she told you they were work property. She said she had some work stuff stored there. I thought she meant files or old paperwork. Not evidence or whatever, he said. I pulled out my phone and showed him our text exchange from 2 months ago. Here's where I asked to retrieve work-related items from Grandma's basement. You replied, not a good time. Estate is complicated. Maybe next month. That was the last time you responded before selling everything. Dad read the text. Carl, I know you were busy. The estate had issues. But you couldn't just sell her property. So you sold my property instead? I asked. I didn't think it mattered, he said. It matters to the Treasury Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the IRS, I said. Uncle Carl went pale. The IRS? You took $15,000 cash and didn't report it as income. That's tax evasion. You also sold federal property without authorization, which is theft. And you obstructed a federal investigation by removing evidence, I said. The room was dead silent. This is insane, Uncle Carl said. I made a mistake. I'll give back the money. The coins are gone. Martin has disappeared. The money you got was a fraction of their value, and our case is now compromised. Lily stood up. You're really going to press charges against family over some coins? I'm not pressing charges. The federal government is. I'm just the investigator whose evidence was stolen, I said. Mom looked between us. Can't you just explain it was a misunderstanding? A misunderstanding would be if Carl didn't know I needed the coins back, but I told him multiple times. He ignored me and sold them anyway. That's not a misunderstanding, that's theft, I said. Uncle Carl's hand shook. I didn't know they were evidence. I thought you were just being difficult about old collectibles. Because you never listened. You never believed I had an important job. You've spent years calling my career worthless. You literally told everyone I worked some desk job. You've mocked my economics degree for years. You've never once asked what I actually do, I said. Dad cleared his throat. To be fair, you never told us much about your work. Because it's classified federal investigations. I can't discuss active cases, but I told you I work for Treasury investigating financial crimes. You just didn't believe it was real work, I said. Just then, the doorbell rang. Mom went to answer it. 2 men in dark suits stood on the porch. Mrs. Thompson? We're with the Treasury Department. We need to speak with Carl Thompson. Mom's hand went to her mouth. Oh God. The agents stepped inside. Mr. Thompson, I'm Special Agent Miller. This is Special Agent Davis. We need to discuss the sale of federal evidence that was in your possession, Agent Miller said. Uncle Carl stood frozen. I want a lawyer. That's your right, but we need to ask you some questions about Martin Black and the coin sale, Agent Miller said. I don't know anything about Black except he bought some coins. Coins that were federal evidence in an active investigation. Coins you sold without authorization despite being told repeatedly they needed to be retrieved by the Treasury investigator who stored them, I said. Aunt Grace grabbed Uncle Carl's arm. Don't say anything without a lawyer. Agent Miller nodded. We also need to discuss the $15,000 cash payment you received and didn't report as income. The IRS has been notified. They'll be contacting you about the unreported income and possible tax evasion charges. Uncle Carl sank into a chair. This can't be happening. We have a warrant to search your home and vehicles. We also have a court order freezing your bank accounts pending investigation into the source and disposition of the $15,000, Agent Davis said. You're freezing my accounts? That's harassment, Uncle Carl said. Standard procedure when investigating theft of federal property and potential money laundering. We need to trace where the money went and ensure no additional evidence has been hidden or destroyed, Agent Miller said. Lily stepped forward. This is harassment. My uncle made an honest mistake. Your uncle sold federal evidence worth $900,000 for $15,000 cash to a known person of interest in a related investigation. That's not an honest mistake. That's a crime, Agent Davis said. Agent Davis handed papers to Uncle Carl. These are the search warrants and asset freeze orders. A team is already at your residence. You'll need to come with us to answer questions. Am I being arrested? Uncle Carl asked. Not at this time. But you're a subject in a federal investigation. We strongly recommend you cooperate, Agent Miller said. Uncle Carl looked at me, his face desperate. Can't you do something? Tell them I didn't know. You did know. I told you. You chose not to listen, I said. Please. I'll pay back the money. I'll help find Black. Just don't let them charge me, he pleaded. It's not up to me. You stole federal evidence. There are consequences, I said. Agent Miller gestured to the door. Mr. Thompson, we need to go. Uncle Carl stood slowly. Aunt Grace started crying. Dad looked stunned. As they led Uncle Carl out, he turned back. The boat. I just wanted a boat. The door closed behind them. 3 weeks later, I sat in the U.S. Attorney's office as they laid out Uncle Carl's options. We've frozen his accounts, seized the boat, and recovered $8,000 of the original $15,000, Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Reed explained. The other $7,000 was spent on boat expenses and house repairs. What about the coins? I asked. Still missing. Black is in the wind. But we tracked the sale to 3 overseas buyers through wire transfers. We're working with Interpol to recover them, but it's complicated, she said. So, the trial? I asked. We're proceeding with alternative evidence. Photographs, authentication records, expert testimony. It's weaker than having the physical coins, but we have enough to prove the manufacturing process. The defense is already filing motions to suppress based on chain of custody issues. Because of Carl. We might still win, but he's made it much harder, she said. What happens to him? I asked. Sarah slid papers across the desk. These are his options. Option 1, plead guilty to theft of federal property and tax evasion. Sentence recommendation of 3 years federal prison, $100,000 in fines, and full restitution for investigative costs, approximately $175,000. I winced. He doesn't have that kind of money. Then he sells assets. His house, vehicles, retirement accounts. The boat's already been seized and will be auctioned, she said. Option 2, he cooperates fully, testifies against Black if we find him, provides any information about the sale, pleads to reduced charges, mishandling federal property and failure to report income. Sentence recommendation of 18 months prison, 2 years supervised release, $50,000 fine and $75,000 restitution, she continued. He'll take option 2. He should. Option 3 is we take this to trial. If convicted, he's looking at 8 to 10 years federal prison and up to $500,000 in fines. That would destroy him, I said. He destroyed a federal investigation. Actions have consequences, she said. I left the office feeling sick. 2 months later, Uncle Carl stood in federal court and pleaded guilty to mishandling federal property and tax evasion. The judge, a woman named Judge Harris, was not sympathetic. Mr. Thompson, you were explicitly told that items in your possession were federal property that needed to be returned. You ignored those requests and sold the property for personal gain. You then failed to report the income from that illegal sale. Do you understand the seriousness of these charges? She asked. Yes, Your Honor, Uncle Carl said quietly. Your actions compromised a major federal investigation involving millions of dollars in fraud. Victims of that fraud may not see justice because of your greed and negligence, she said. I didn't know, he said. You didn't care to know. You saw an opportunity for quick money and took it. That's not an excuse, she said. Judge Harris reviewed the sentencing recommendation. The government has recommended 18 months federal prison, 2 years supervised release, $50,000 fine, and $75,000 restitution. Do you understand these terms? Yes, Your Honor, Uncle Carl said. The restitution covers the cost of additional investigation, expert testimony, and recovery efforts necessitated by your theft. If you cannot pay, your assets will be liquidated. Is that clear? Yes, Your Honor. You will report to the Bureau of Prisons within 30 days. You will have no contact with Martin Black or any individuals associated with the counterfeiting investigation. You will cooperate fully with any ongoing recovery efforts. Violation of these terms will result in additional charges. I understand. Then I accept your plea and impose the recommended sentence. 18 months federal prison, 2 years supervised release, $50,000 fine payable within 5 years, and $75,000 restitution payable within 3 years or through asset liquidation. The gavel came down. Uncle Carl turned to look at me, his eyes filled with regret and anger. I looked away. 6 months later, the counterfeiting trial concluded. Despite the missing coins, we secured convictions on all major charges. The network leaders received sentences ranging from 12 to 23 years. Total restitution was $41 million. Uncle Carl served 14 months at a federal prison camp in Ohio. His house was sold to cover restitution. His retirement account was liquidated. Aunt Grace divorced him 3 months into his sentence. When he was released, he called me. I'm out. Thought you should know. How are you? I asked. Broke, divorced, living in a studio apartment, working at a hardware store, paying restitution for the next 2 years, he said. I'm sorry it turned out this way. Are you? You could have helped me. Your family, he said. You stole federal evidence. I couldn't protect you from that. I made a mistake. I didn't deserve to lose everything. You didn't just make a mistake, Carl. You took something that wasn't yours, sold it for cash, and didn't report the income. You ignored me when I told you I needed it back. You assumed my work wasn't important because you never believed I had a real career. Silence. I never thought you were important, he admitted. I thought you had some government paper-pushing job. I didn't think coins mattered. They mattered to the victims who lost millions to counterfeiting. They mattered to the case that put criminals in prison. They mattered to me. I know that now. It's too late now. He hung up. I haven't spoken to him since. The family still doesn't fully understand what I do. They know I work for Treasury. They know I investigate financial crimes. They know Uncle Carl went to prison because of something involving my work, but they still don't really get it. They still don't ask questions. And I've stopped trying to explain. The coins were eventually recovered, all 127 pieces. Interpol tracked them to collectors in Switzerland and Japan. Full recovery took 11 months and cost an additional $200,000 in international coordination. That cost was added to Uncle Carl's restitution. He'll be paying it off until he's 70. And every payment is a reminder that my unimportant desk job and worthless coin collection were worth more than he ever imagined.